Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's event for the Experts in Action event series. This series provides a platform where brands and partners can present what they built on Contentful and share their learnings with our community of digital experts facing similar challenges and working on some exciting digital projects. My name is Jennifer Payne, and I am an account executive at Contentful, and I am broadcasting from slightly summery and sunny Amsterdam today. And we have our friends here from Veloretti and Ask Phil. So let's kick off with our round of introductions. And I would like to hand it over to Tom, Martijn, and Paul. And maybe Tom, you can start off today.
I will. Good morning, everyone. And very nice to be talking about Veloretti and, of course, our fully revamped website. I'm Tom. Although my title says differently in the announcement, as of recently, I became head of sales for Veloretti, which entails all commercial activities we do. So everything from sales to partnerships to retail. Yeah, it comes to me. And I used to be all-rounder, but we've grown. And so we get more and more specialists, we get more and more diverse roles, but my role becomes more specific. Maybe just a fun fact to start off with, at the start of the launch of our new website, up until now, we had sold 18,000 bicycles, of which around 4,000 e-bikes, which means a growth in our full sales up until today of 46%. Which I think is, really good. Really pleased with that. We used to have 40 employees, but I see here it says 40. At the moment, we have about 60 and still growing. I just hired 2 new people yesterday. So we're heading into the right way. Paul, Martijn?
Great. Thanks, Tom, for the introduction. So my name is Martijn. I'm commercial director at Ask Phil. I'm one of the founders. I'm responsible for the sales and marketing at Ask Phil. And I'm here today with Paul.
Yes. Hello, I'm Paul, and I'm also the other co-founder of Ask Phil and tech director. So I'm in the end responsible for all the platforms and technical solutions we deliver to our clients.
Like Jennifer already introduced, so we're an e-commerce agency focused on building digital flagship stores for our clients. We do this based on Shopify and Contentful for our headless builds. And we mainly focus on fashion, lifestyle, and beauty brands. So here you can see a small selection of the brands. Some of them are startups, which we help to grow. Others are international brands selling globally. So it's a nice mix of brands we work with.
Great. Thanks for the introduction, guys. Very excited to have you here with us today. Let's just dive into the questions. So the very first question I have is, how did this journey start for you at Veloretti? And maybe, Tom, can you give us some background information about the business challenge you wanted to solve and the goals you had for this specific project?
Certainly. So when I started with Veloretti just over 4 years ago, our founder had just moved to Shopify. Before that, we used WooCommerce, which was a big challenge. And the other thing was that he had a partner with which he had built the basic website. So we had a few product pages, we had a few lifestyle pages, but that was about it. We were very pleased with it. And it was good for the time being. So we had a basic site, we had the pages, we had a configurator and a checkout, but it was pretty complex in adjusting it. If we wanted any changes, if we wanted anything more, we were very much depending on our developers. So the real challenge came for us when we started to develop our e-bike, which was just over 2.5 years ago. And we did not only want to launch a new e-bike, but we also wanted to launch a new website. And so we started to talk with our developers and slowly got to know that there were quite a few limitations in adding new products, making adjustments in our configurator, easily adjust headers. It was always a bit of a challenge to get done what we wanted. And this, I want to say, issue became really clear when we wanted a full haul over. We wanted to fully change the look and feel of our website. And our developer wasn't really thinking with us. So along the project, our marketing manager had a few situations where he had some challenges. I want to say challenges, maybe it was some internal fights. But we didn't get done what we wanted. And so we started looking around. And that's where we got into contact with Paul and Martijn. I think they're very easily approachable two gentlemen. But the minute we met them and first explained what we wanted, but also explained our challenges, we got the feeling that they understood us, that they were not only saying like, hey, we can do what you want, but they were also giving information, suggestions, and other ideas about how to approach this full haul over. We were very new to Contentful, and we were also very new to a headless website. But yeah, they continuously advised us. They continuously helped us with all the things we wanted. Now, we wanted more, of course, than they could immediately do. But from a marketing perspective, they got us. They said, you want a top-notch website. You want it to look and feel just like the e-bike. And from a business perspective, they also got us because you want an amazing UX. You also want something that is scalable. And in the end, of course, for me, as sales, you want everything to contribute to the experience and the conversion for now, but also for the growth plans we had in the future. And so I think that was the start of it.
It sounds like a very challenging start of the project, but I'm very happy to hear that this partnership between you, between all of you, worked so well right from the start. So Tom, Martijn, and Paul, how did you go about defining the project requirements for this specific project together?
Shall I kick it off, Paul, Martijn? You then fill me.
Sounds good.
So one of the main challenges we had was the time pressure. Bikes are always depending on weather. If the weather is nice, then of course you do most of your sales. If the sun shines, people start buying the bikes. So we had a little bit of time pressure, and we wanted to launch in summer. So this was, I think, the first requirement we had. And this is also where Paul and Martijn sort of stopped us and thought what they could do or not, if I'm right?
Yeah. I remember that we had the first call from Veloretti. I think we were introduced by a numbered studio who did the full design, the front end design of the design of the website. And we collaborate often with them. And they said, okay, we need to have this full platform as soon as possible because the electric bikes are on their way. We have 4 weeks. To give you an idea, a normal project for us is around from start to end, let's say development, 3 to 5 months, depending on the complexity. So this was impossible. And I think that's also what we discussed with the team was like, okay, guys, 4 weeks, it's simply impossible. But I think Paul with the tech team approaches in like an opportunistic way and said like, okay, let's strip out all the nice to haves. Let's focus on the need to haves and create an MVP together. Yeah. Even by stripping down the MVP, it was impossible 4 weeks, simply because I think one of the requirements of the team of Veloretti was to create an industry-setting new platform, just like their bikes, the highest quality they could achieve. So if we, of course, everything is possible, and in 4 weeks maybe, but we couldn't guarantee the quality we always want to achieve. So that was, I think, Paul, when you, with the tech team, started to cut up the project in different scopes.
I think it was a really nice challenge, and I think with numbered, of course, they make like really amazing designs, but they can also be quite challenging. So a lot of animations and a lot of cool things, and I think that's what we really like. But I think together with Veloretti team and Numbered, we really looked at what can we skip from the website. Maybe later on we can show you how big the full design was and how big the full project was. And we just went back from, okay, with in mind that the project needs to be on the like this or has this huge scope. How can we just start with a small, the first version of the website? And I think that's how we kicked it up. And I think really quickly built the electric website.
Yeah, so we scoped it down to only the electric bikes, right? It was electric.veloretti.com.
Not even.
Because those bikes needed to be sold.
No, that is completely true. So you were pretty honest about the options, and I think that we even cut down the configurator style. And just said like, hey guys, if we wanted to have the look and feel you want, or I should say, which Numbered, of course, helped us with. That's the Champions League website we wanted. This is what we can deliver within the time span that there is. And so, it was a bit of a we had to swallow a little bit because we got the MVP, then we got the V1 and the V2. So the MVP was literally one page to which you could convert your ticket, and then later on also could convert to the e-bike. And then I think V1 was the full electric, and then V2 was the rest of the whole site we had. But we're still developing.
Yeah.
Every day new things are coming.
Yeah. And I think with V2, we also launched a lot of the animations. I think the team from Veloretti is always really pushing on that. And I think we also always really like to work on that. But I think it has been a really nice journey.
It has been. And I have to be honest, so Contentful or you guys show us what is possible. And it also makes that internally we add more and more, which is sort of like the fun part of it. Now, I'm not involved in that part, but I see how busy Numbered is. I see how busy you guys are, and I see how busy the marketing team is. And it seems like there's no end to it.
Yeah, makes sense. I see. So like a headless solution seems to have been the right choice in this case.
Well, yes and no, but mainly yes. I want to say no because we knew, and especially of course when we started talking to Ask Phil, that there was a lot that needed to be built from the ground up. So everything that we wanted was sort of like custom, which was a bit of a challenge to agree, but we pretty quickly agreed that if we want to have this scalability later on, we need to do this. So we had a lot of wishes, a lot of new complex products like the insurance part, which is also depending on country and language and all the other. It's a very complex way of building it. Luckily, of course, we had a few developers internally who, we connected pretty well. So they helped us a lot, and we're also willing to go a bit further than usual, I think. But it all needed to be set up. So everything needed to be linked. Every product needed to be set up. Every accessory needed to be linked to anything. And then, of course, as soon as you have something, you find out something new. So we knew that this was a sort of like a natural growing process. But this investment also was keeping in mind that it should make things a lot easier internally, because we have a few people here which are not developers, but due to this development of the headless website, it's fairly easy to add new products, to connect them to the right parts, to create PDP blocks for text, and also making us less depending on developers. And I don't mean any offense, Martijn and Paul, you guys are pretty good, but this was also what we discussed up front, because we won't be depending on the developer on one side to have all these amazing features. We also want to be less dependent so that we can add, change, adjust everything in the back end, making it look good at the front end for the future. And I think that's where I say yes. At the moment, we're already in this process where it becomes much more easy. The things we like, we can add, we can adjust the UX a little bit. We can adjust, the flows and friendly messaging, headers, everything. Yeah.
It's a bit of a paradox. So the initial setup, we're used to building on Shopify alone as a standalone tool. Shopify is super easy to use. It's a SaaS solution. The front end is also hosted by Shopify. So it has some advantages to be on Shopify, but for some of our clients for which Shopify has some limitations, we offer headless builds with Contentful. And one of them is that, so the flexibility, like Tom just mentioned, they want to be able that if they change something to their bike builder, they could do it themselves. Performance was important for them, especially it becoming a digital flagship store with heavy imagery, videos, 3D models. We needed a good CMS to host it and a high performance front end. And I think the ambition from Veloretti to grow to a global brand, because so with Shopify, we've seen some challenges for creating multi-language stores. There are a couple of ways to do it. But if your ambition is to grow to more than, let's say, 8 different languages, then Contentful is an easy choice. So that I think was when we decided together with the team, like, let's go for the headless build and set, let's say, the standards within Contentful for the Veloretti team to reuse them. They can create their own pages based on the design system, designed by numbered. So that's actually what we did. And maybe Paul, I could show the headless architecture. You can.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. And I think to add to that, to what they said, I think one of the requirements was for the Veloretti team that they keep their old website online on the same Shopify backend and have like the electric bike website also connects to the same Shopify website, running together, so at the same time. That was also a really important requirement why we choose for the headless solution. And I think what you can see here, so as we are a Shopify agency, we always use Shopify for the e-commerce part. And here you can see we use Contentful for all the content. So if you go to the Veloretti.com website, everything you see is hosted on Contentful and also managing Contentful. So all the imagery, all the videos, all the text, all the translations, all on Contentful. And we only use Shopify for the inventory management, the price management, and the checkout. So you would also see that when you go to the checkout, you go to a separate domain, and that is hosted on Shopify. And then we combine everything in the front end with Next.js. So that's our stack of choice. And we use the GraphQL admin or API from Contentful to get all the data from Contentful. And we use the storefront API from Shopify. And then in the end, we host it on our Vercel. For this case, sometimes we also use Netlify, as always, depending on the client. And in the end, the customer sees the website and it's like one experience, but we use 2 systems on the back end.
Yeah.
Maybe just a fun insight to add to that, but we used to had like 3-4 different Shopify backends, which was also a crime for our customer care department.
Yes. So I think that's what I just mentioned, like a well-known challenge for our clients who like to scale to multiple languages with Shopify, let's say native. You have to set up, or in the past, you had to set up like a separate store per language. And indeed, those are separate silos of data. So the orders come in separate stores, and then indeed for the customer care team, they need to look up in which store, which order is placed. As an example.
That was one of the reasons, I think, a couple of years back where we started with the headless architecture, because we got clients who had indeed multiple stores. And it's like, I think from a client perspective, it's a terrible experience. And now you have like one place where you can use or manage all the content. And I think one of the biggest advantages is, and that's for the people who worked on a multi Shopify setup, is that you also have like the fallback language. So in Contentful, we said, okay, English is the fallback language for all languages, for example. And then when you don't fill in a language, but you want to add that language to already start testing in a different country, it will use the English fallback language. So you don't have to translate a whole store to go to another locale. You can just go page by page. So that's one of the main advantages we've seen with headless builds compared to the native Shopify ones.
Yeah, and Paul, you talked a bit about how Contentful's content model was a critical part of this process. Can you share some insights into why you use this particular approach and how the content model was driving this experience?
Yeah, this is something we learned the hard way. I think with the experience we have on headless build, we didn't do it in the beginning like in this really structured manner. I think if we go to the next slide, you can see, so this is how we normally get like the design delivered. So I think it's quite extensive, and back in the days, we made like content models per page. I think that was not a good idea. And now we've learned that we have like a certain rule to content modeling. So we use 4 content models. Maybe if you go to the next slide, and that is like page, section, component, and globals. And when we get like a design, we take a lot of time to just cut up the whole website in different pieces. And we say, okay, this is, for example, a section or a page. So this is then the page general. We see the page general as a page builder. So all pages that are not e-commerce related. And then on all the pages that are general, we're going to cut out the sections. So all the sections. So for example, the top section, we would call the section CTA in Contentful. And underneath you would see the section statement. And I think with the section CTA, there are like a lot of different variations. But one of the variations is the button. So that would be then a component. So within the section, we have components. And this button is, for example, the big button, but you also have the small button. And then in the button component, the Veloretti team can adjust what kind of button they would like to see. So this is now one variation of the section, but they can get like unlimited variations of this section. So with the button in the middle, button on the left, button on the right, for desktop and for mobile different. And then in the end, we also have some globals. And the globals, for example, is the header, what you can see here on the top, or the footer, or like global translation, like add to cart, certain words that you would see throughout the whole website. We call also the dictionary.
Yeah, and I think maybe to add to that, what you explained, Paul, about the button. So in the design, there are multiple variations of the button, which we make available in the backend. So depending on, maybe the image where they want to have the button, the team can adjust it in the backend. But it's not that they can just drag and drop on a position where they want, which probably would break the design. We've set the standard, and within the standard of the design, the Veloretti team can play around without breaking the design in any way. So it's really to also harness the brand experience for the customers who are visiting.
You've coded the places, right? If we want it left, we can put it left, and if we want it top, yeah.
Yeah, it sure looks great, guys. I mean, I've already seen some of this live, but I'm sure the audience would also love to see what this actually looks on the Veloretti website. Can you show us that amazing bike builder?
Yeah, so this is also a really important one. This is also what we learned along the way. Sorry, this is still a bit about the content modeling. So in Contentful, we always also use the same naming convention as the content model that we just showed. So we always have on the top left, you can see, for example, the page general, page outlet, page products. So that are the different pages we have. Then you have like the different sections on the right. So here you can see a number of the sections we have. And then we also have the components. So with adding that naming convention, so section dash, and then accordions, for example, it's also more clear for the content editors. It used to be that we would call it accordions or bike highlights, but we found out that it's easier to understand if we just keep this naming convention. So that's also like a learning we got from building multiple stores on this setup.
Yeah, indeed. The nice thing of Contentful is that it's so flexible and open, but you also need to create a structure within Contentful, which is logical for the users.
Yeah, so that's why we also spend a lot of time thinking about the content model and testing it before we put it in Contentful.
And like Jennifer said, maybe we can show how the bike builder looks. This is
we're again really sorry put you guys up with this very complex configurator.
Yeah, so this was a really big challenge in the whole process. I think this is something we haven't done before. I think the most important was that we gave Veloretti the power to adjust this configurator themselves, so they don't have to call us when we when they want to add another bike, or when they add, for example, another product group that they can add to this configurator. On the old setup, it was hard-coded. So when they wanted to add, for example, bike on the old website, they needed to ask a developer. And if we go to the next slide, We adjusted the content model. So, for example, on the previous slide, you've seen that we have one step in the customizer. So it's just on one page, you have like one section with all the upsell possibilities. If you go to the electric bike page on the real website, you can see you have multiple steps. So we start, for example, with customize. You can add a lock, you can add like different cargo options. And then after that, you can also add different types of insurances. So here on the right, you can see that in Contentful, we just had a component and it was the customizer step. So they can add one customizer step, what they did, for example, on the city bike, but they can also add two customizer steps or 3, 4, 5, 6. It doesn't even matter. So along the way, in the future, they would also be able to test multiple steps in the customizer flow to buy a bike. And then if you go one step deeper, for example, we go one step deeper inside the customizer step, we have the product groups. And here, the Veloretti team can add product groups. So for example, saddles, grips, or carriers, or bells, or things like that. And then you can also add like an image that gives that experience that when you click on something, it also changes the bike on the left. So you really get like the customizer experience. And they don't need us to do it. They can just add a group, they can add certain products and just make this whole customizer dynamic.
It really looks great. And the thing is, you achieved this result in such a short time span. Tom, maybe you can also share with us some of the business results coming from this project.
I can. So the main goal to first do this was the e-bike. We simply wanted to have a premium experience to launch the e-bike because, well, it's a new product and it needs to be right the first time. So when we had the MVP, we started with the pre-ordered tickets for the e-bike. And I think that the first round of tickets, roughly, I think we said to 250 or 300 were sold in a few days. And we set a goal that if it would be successful, we could do a second round of tickets. So as this was sold in a few days, we said, you know what, production is good, let's do a second round. And because, well, the site looked good, people were very excited about all the information they found on the MVP. We put out a second round and this was sold in just a few hours. But again, we cut it down so that we didn't want to overdo it. Due to the success of the second round, we did a third and final round, which was sold out, I think, in 90 minutes, less than 90 minutes. So we got the feeling that we were on the right way, the right path, that the website was performing as we would. We knew that more was coming, but also the product was going to be good. So the whole experience on a commercial side was amazing. I think that all the things that were still on our side, not on the customer side, but the things that we were not happy about was that they had to go back and forth between the old and new side, and we had this premium experience and this, but we could see there was more traction on the website. We could see that people were very excited about all these new features and the whole look and feel of the new website. So I think from a commercial perspective, it was a huge success with the new website. And yeah, we didn't have to wait for the delivery of V1 and V2. On top of that, I also think, and big compliments again to Martijn and Paul and the team, is that we introduced together with a different partner of us, Cover, an insurance product. Now, I'm not very much into insurances unless, of course, I have to claim something, but I was not aware of the fact that it was so complex. So we thought that we could just simply offer a product like a bike and that people would buy it and that was it. They pay for it, done. But there was so much complexity to it. I think that this was also the final step why the website was maybe launched later or maybe on the very last moment, because Askville had to build in so many safety steps or triggers in this whole process. But if I recall it, had about 85% of the people in those first 3 rounds also buying the insurance because of the UX, because of the look and feel, because of the ease of paying it all with us and settling it. So adding this project was a huge success. Adding this insurance was a huge success, thanks to the guys of Askville, and also, of course, because of Numbered, because they had to build in all these designs. But
and
in
Tom,
the whole,
sorry to interrupt, but previously in the flow, it was someone bought a bike, and then they had to email you to get, or you emailed them to get an insurance, right? So it was more of a manual task.
Yeah, it was a follow-up. So as soon as someone has bought the insurance, you do this email flow. It's like, hey, you bought the bike. Would you also like insurance? Which causes a lot of extra manual labor. So this was, business-wise, a great success. And then another big success I think is that we lately been awarded for the full site. So I can just simply tell that the whole process, the whole project exceeded all of our goals.
It sounds amazing, and well done on the award as well. Really well done. So with these projects in the bag, what is next for all of you at Veloretti, Tom, and together with Martijn and the rest of the team?
What's next for us in the bag is that, like I said before, there's always more to develop. As a bike brand, we want to focus more on the e-bike. And this is going to become our main turnover product. So this means that we also want to set up the website accordingly, but it also means that the marketing team is constantly changing, looking what they can add, what they want to provide for our customers. At the moment, we are a product-aimed party, a product-aimed company. I mean, we used to sell city bikes and kids bikes. Now we've added this electric bike, but due to the growth and also due to adding more and more technical aspects, I want to say, we're slowly moving towards a tech company. So we want to look at how we can provide tech solutions, maybe even more on the tech side for the e-bike, all the benefits. So we hired a tech lead. And I think for the future, that's where we're heading. We're still going to sell the bikes. I think that's going to be for the next few months, years, definitely. But yeah, that's what's in the bag for us. We want to become a global brand, and we want to still grow further and further into this e-bike part. But it also means that the website is going to become more and more complex. We're building I think I can easily tell that we're building a repair part to our website where people can simply just apply their repairs. It's now being done manually by our customer care department, but this is also something that we want to just integrate in the website. But also our leasing side is going to become more and more. So in all of this, our website is going to become our tech part of the company, which is going to become really important to us.
Wow, that sounds great. It sounds like you've made some very important steps in this process, but there's still a lot to achieve in the future. So we're very excited to follow that whole process over the coming periods.
A lot to come.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of questions actually come in the chat. So let me have a look at those and ask you guys. And let's see, what do we have here? I have Yuval asking, how easy is it to translate the content? Do you have any visual context? I would say Martijn or Paul.
I would give it to Paul, but it's very easy if you're used to Shopify. So maybe,
I think it's twofold. So I think the first one is that it's really easy to set up. So for example, you in content, you just add a language, you select what the fallback language is. So for example, if you want to add the French locale, you can select, okay, what's the fallback language for the French locale or for the French language? And then you can select one of the already filled in like languages. I think then you enable it, and then you need to set per field what field is translatable. And that's something that we already do with the content modeling. And when we add all the information inside of Contentful, normally we wouldn't translate, for example, videos and images. We only translate like words and strings and like phrases or paragraphs. So that's, I think, what we normally do. And I think the second is the visual. So in the backend of Contentful, it's really easy to switch on and off languages. So you see, for example, multiple languages, or you hide them. And you can also give certain administrators or certain users access to only one language. So it is quite straightforward and really easy to set up.
Great. Thanks for that, Paul. We have a question from Bram as well. Is there a reason to manage the prices inside of Shopify rather than in Contentful?
Yes, I think I will pick this up as well. But I think that's a really good question, and somebody's ringing the bell here, but it will be okay. I think why we manage it inside Contentful is because, or in Shopify, is because there is the source information of all the products. So in Shopify, we need to do the checkout, we need to manage the inventory, and everything is in there. And we have a small script that we use. It's called Failbot to sync everything between Shopify and Contentful. So in Contentful, the Shopify ID lives, but that's only used to fetch all the information from Shopify. So in Contentful is the Shopify ID that syncs everything between Shopify and Contentful.
Yeah, and maybe to add to that, like Contentful is a CMS, so it's really to manage your content, while Shopify is the e-commerce engine, which makes the calculations, which hosts the checkout, hosts the order management. So yeah, our front end takes the information of the price directly from Shopify.
And for us, for me, I've learned a lot about Contentful, and I know a thing or two. But for us, it's also easy to have our supply chain guys or myself just adjust things in Shopify. That's what my main working platform is. So let's say at the moment we're doing our outlet. It's easy for me to adjust pricing there, and then it automatically is being showed on Contentful. If I simply adjust the whole price range for, let's say, our cafe racer, for all cafe racers, it's easy for me to have it all together. I know that if I go into Contentful, it's a lot of searching and fetching everywhere. So also for us, it's very easy and better to use it from Shopify.
Great, thanks. Then we have another question from Simon coming in. How did you go about testing the content model before building it in Contentful?
That's a good question. I think that's something. So when we started this process, we got like a part of the design. I think it was only the electric part of the website. So then we built this whole content model. We tested it. So that means that we just look at all the variations. Can we do it? Of course, one of the limitations of Contentful is that the amount of content models you get. So it's 48. If you need to go to enterprise, but so we always need to make sure that we stay inside that limit. And also, when we got the other part of the design, we retested the content model and see, okay, what can we add to existing content models? And to manage that, or how we test that, is just to see, okay, can we manage it within the 48 content models? That's a big test we always have. And if not, we're gonna see, okay, what can we combine together to get like the same result?
I think that just to add to that, that's part of was part of the briefing. So since Veloretti before was only on Shopify, they did not calculate it like a full budget also for a separate CMS. And for some clients, if they choose to go for enterprise right away, because they've calculated that in the budget, then we don't have that limitation of 48 content types. So I think that's the reason why we see how we can build it within that limit.
Thanks for that addition as well, Martijn. I have another question that came in from Carlijn. How are you working with the components on the site? For example, I see managing images in various sizes on your site with also various types of call to actions. Is the image a component that you can use in various sizes and you link it to a certain call to action? And the title text, which are separate components? Or are the title and the CTA fields within the image components, if that makes sense?
Now, this is where it goes beyond my knowledge, and I'm really sorry for that. Because
So I think that's a good question, and I think how we set it up, and that we do almost for all websites, we have the so-called component media, and in the component media, that's so that, for example, if you look at the banner on the, or like the first banner, we call the hero section of the website. We use the component media, and in the component media, you can add like a mobile image, a desktop image, or a video, so that there's like maximum flexibility. So everywhere where you see a media image, you can select a video, and you can select a different mobile image or a desktop image. So that's, I think, one of the most important parts that we always take into consideration, because you don't want to limit any part of the website to only an image. So everything you see here can be an image, can be a video. They can select it, because we always use the component media. Same for the buttons. So this is the big button, but if they want to select the small button, they can also select the different buttons within the button selector. So that's just how we like the content model, to give flexible, like the most opportunity for customization along the way, so they don't have to call us to adjust something.
I see you have 4 products in your, if we're talking about call to action, Paul, which 4 products do you have in your basket? Why are you not buying?
This is Martijn.
Sorry.
So no, so that's yeah. I think that's I hope that answers the question. And then the strings and all the information within a section we just put into the section, and then the component media we link and component button we link.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. And I see that Bram asked us, I think, another 2 questions. So it looks like the variant source of truth is in Contentful, since you built up the customizer inside of Contentful.
No, that is the variant source of truth is in Shopify. We just link in the customizer, we link the different products to the right instance in Shopify with the ID. And how that happens from a more technical perspective, when the Veloretti team updates something in Shopify, we create a component within Contentful, and that has the ID of the product and the name. And then you can link it to, for example, the customizer.
Yeah, and then our internal team, of course, also connects all the things they want connected to. So all the accessories, all the steps, they connected all in Contentful.
Yeah.
And I think this question sort of links to that, but just to make sure that we have that covered as well. In the end, when the user adds the product to the cart, how does Shopify know which variant it is adding? Is there a link between Shopify and Contentful, or are they manually added in both platforms?
No, it's linked.
Yeah, it's linked, and we select the variant ID. So I think we look for the variant ID and not like the product ID. So that's about how we know where the variant is. And for example, the insurance is also a variant within Shopify.
Thanks, Paul. Then we have a question from Christian. How about the Veloretti community, its products, and what about the experience of using a bike? Tom, maybe you can answer this.
Yeah, so I think that what we want to do online, socially, of course, is something that we want to move forward to on the page and on Contentful. So we've got a big following, a big community, but this community is also growing, and we need to, I think, adjust them in different manners. So what we're doing now is that we're also adding new pages for the community. It's not there yet because, well, yeah, we have lots of wishes. But we are also trying to come up with, what's it called again? Content pages, discussions, information. I think it's all in the pipeline for May, but yeah, it's not there yet. I think that what I call the customer care part is something that we want to put in a accounts environment where they can find all the things specifically aimed at them. So if they have a certain product, or if they have a certain question, they can find it all in that accounts page. So we're building more of like an enclosed environment, we're building an open environment where we talk about the brand, and we have another environment for all of the owners of the bikes, where they can find more and more about their bike, about what we're doing, about, yeah, well, everything actually. I feel that I'm looking a little bit about what to tell about the Veloretti community, because I know we're growing and we're building a lot of things. That's not something I can show now, I think. Sorry.
It's a bit like the Harley Davidson community, right? Here in Amsterdam, where you see people riding on the Veloretti bikes are always ringing to each other and waving.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have the salute. We don't have this specific thing yet.
Well, it's something that we can work on towards the future, right? Like something that we can maybe host another webinar on, maybe in a year or so.
Yeah, I think the Veloretti community at the moment is mainly living at Facebook. I know there are 3 pages at the moment of Veloretti Electric, Germany, Netherlands, and Belgium. And that's where the Veloretti community lives a lot more than before. Before it was simply a Facebook page where people sometimes replied to things, and now that we have the e-bike, We see that this community gives us a lot of useful feedback as well about the product. They also tell us a lot about what works and what doesn't work. In all honesty, we have made a few, I want to say, it's not mistakes, but we had some delays in production, and then we got this feedback via this community. We got the feedback from the pages. We also got the feedback from people writing comments. But I think Facebook at the moment is where our huge part of the community lives. But we want to integrate it more on our website.
Thanks, Tom. We have a question from Angelo. Great presentation session. Thanks. So that's a compliment to you guys. And then the question, were there any limitations or challenges you ran into when working on this project, i.e. perhaps traffic load related, API limits on Shopify, a well-known limitation apparently, and did you have to use Shopify admin API calls, and any Contentful related limitations, examples, and how did you solve them?
That's a good question. I think this is definitely a subject that we struggle with some projects. I think this is especially for the really big projects. So if you look at projects that have like up to 10,000 pages, for example, then you walk into like limitations of Shopify. But I think on this use case for Veloretti, they don't have like that many pages. They of course have like a lot of products, but not compared to fashion brands, for example, that can have like 500-600 products per collection. So with this project, we didn't run into any limitations, and we have quite a lot of experience with handling those limitations. So we have our own like refetch module, how we refetch Shopify during the build time of Next.js when we build the website and put it on the CDN. And I think looking at the Shopify API limits for the customer, there are no limits. So that's, I think, good to understand that every time you log into the website or you go to the website, you get like a new rate limit from Shopify. So we never seen that there's a limit to the experience for the customer. At least it's a challenge for us from the backend guys, or like how we build the website, but it's not for the customer. So yeah, no limitations there.
Thanks, Paul. We have another question from Philip. You have a lot of nice videos and renderings in high quality. Which formats do you use, and how do you compress it without quality loss for mobile and desktop?
This is the part I think I have to talk to the marketing team about, because although I sit next to our content head of content or brand manager, I'm not sure, actually, to be honest. Maybe Paul or Martijn can add to it. I know that they do a lot about getting the highest quality and adding it in, but I'm not entirely sure how the compressing affects that. Do you know that, guys?
Yeah, I can elaborate a bit on it. So I think for us, it's really important that the website is super fast. That's also a reason to go headless. So if you go to page speed from Google, you put in the Veloretti website, you would see it's way better than the average website. It passes the web vitals without any issue, and that's the most important metric for us. So the first, what you see on top. And I think to get there, so of course, Veloretti team compresses the images. Then we use the Contentful CDN. We always search for each component what's like the best setting. So how wide do we need to make the image? And for the videos, we use the Vimeo API. So they upload it to Vimeo. We get the URL, and that we put into the content model.
Thanks. We have a final question from Michaela. Do all the components need to be created individually, or do you copy them?
I think so. With Contentful, you can select. I think that's the cool thing. So you can, when you, for example, use the page. So we then have this. We're on the component or on the page content type, and you want to add different sections. You can select. Okay, I want to create a new section, or I want to link a certain section. And that's the same with the components. So I think if you look at the images, you just create different component medias with different, like for example, images or videos, and that you can reuse throughout the site. Same for the button. If you want to have like a button that's linked to a product page that has a certain text field, you can reuse it throughout the website. So I think that's the biggest advantage of working with components instead of making everything like static. And that's also why we spend a lot of time on that content modeling. I think that's the biggest takeaway for the developers here, at least. When you work with Contentful, take a lot of time and think a lot about how to content model, so that also the reusability is bigger for the client.
Yeah, I think that was a well-known challenge for us during the project. So we've been building headless Shopify Contentful store since I think 3.5 years, as one of the first in Europe. And there was not that much documentation for the tech team how to build it. So for us, it was a lot of trial and error, and was really about how can we make the platform as performant as possible, as flexible as possible. And I think what Paul also said, like the content modeling is so important. Previously, we would start building a website, we would get the designs of the homepage and the product page. But then eventually, if you have the full design, then you see that you have to restructure content models, which takes a lot of time and refactoring. So that's probably indeed the biggest takeaway. Take the time to model your content model and then start building.
Yeah, and maybe to add to that for us, so when we started, we had an idea about how it looked. And of course, we had numbered on the side who advised us on how to build it. But we realized along the way that there's so much more to do. So definitely make sure at the start of your product, you know what the goal is and what you want to achieve with the site and what you want to develop, but also realize there's so much more to do and you can add along the way. You don't have to be let down if it's not there right away. We can add at least, and we're doing that now, more and more along the way. And that's definitely bringing some rest with the team. At first we were very stressed and everything needed to be there. We also figured out that once it's there, there's so much more that we could do. So yeah, take the time and don't feel stressed if it's not there right away.
Great takeaways, guys. With that, I think it's time to wrap up the event for today. Thank you so much, Tom, Martijn, and Paul, for sharing your project with us. There was so much detail, and I sure learned a lot about best practices between Shopify and Contentful. And I would love to hear more about how the Veloretti brand develops over the coming time. And then with that, before we go, I would like to remind you that The Experts in Action is a series of events, and the next one will be hosted very soon. Thanks so much for joining everyone today. And Tom, Martijn, and Paul will speak again very soon.